Welcome to Bookgist. We provide concise and insightful summaries of books from all sorts of genres.
You can find us at bookgist.net.
That's right. On Bookgist.net, we break down complex ideas from a wide array of fascinating reads.
A huge variety. And for today's deep dive, we're going to be taking a close look at why
We provide concise and insightful summaries of books from all sorts of genres.
You can find us at bookgist.net.
That's right. On Bookgist.net, we break down complex ideas from a wide array of fascinating reads.
A huge variety. And for today's deep dive, we're going to be taking a close look at why Buddhism is true.
By Robert Wright.
Yeah, exactly.
This book is a really interesting blend of science, philosophy, and personal experience.
It really is. And it delves into those powerful Buddhist teachings.
Not just for personal well-being,
Yeah.
but for society as a whole.
For society as a whole, exactly.
So it's not a religious lecture though, right?
No, not at all.
I think the title might throw some people off.
I can see that. It's more of an exploration,
Yeah.
of how our minds work, why we experience suffering,
Okay.
and how things like meditation can actually shift our entire perception of reality.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin with a concept like that?
Well, one of the places that the book starts with,
The book summary on Bookgist.net mentions something about reality being an illusion.
that's one of the core premises of the book. It's really interesting. Both Buddhism and evolutionary psychology agree on this point.
Really?
Yeah. It's kind of surprising.
That is surprising.
They approach it from different angles, though.
Okay.
Buddhism suggests that our perceptions are clouded,
Clouded by?
by desires and attachments, while evolutionary psychology argues that our minds just prioritize survival and reproduction,
Even if it means
even if it means bending reality a little bit.
So it's not necessarily that the world outside of us is an illusion.
No.
But just like the way our brain processes it can be
It can be skewed.
spewed. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Our brains have evolved to ensure our ancestors' survival,
Right.
not necessarily to see the world objectively.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, for example, take our modern-day relationship with sugar.
Okay.
Our ancestors craved sugary foods because they were scarce and provided energy.
Made sense.
Right. So evolutionarily, that made sense.
Right.
But now sugar's readily available everywhere,
Yeah.
and that craving isn't so beneficial.
Right.
So our brains are still trying to catch up a little bit.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder what other illusions we're operating under.
Totally. Yeah.
The book summary also touched on the idea that happiness itself is an illusion.
Yeah.
That seems a little counterintuitive, right?
It does.
Aren't we all striving for happiness?
We are.
Yeah.
But the book argues that the constant pursuit of happiness
Okay.
is actually a major source of suffering.
It's like a paradox.
It is a bit of a paradox. Think about it. How often do we achieve something that we thought would make us happy,
Yeah.
only to find that feeling fading over time?
Totally.
Like you get a new car,
Yeah.
a bigger house,
Even a new relationship.
even a new relationship, and you get used to it.
It's like that feeling of getting a raise, Yes.
Exactly.
Exciting at first, but then it just becomes your new normal.
Exactly.
Is there a name for that?
Yeah, it's called hedonic adaptation.
Hedonic adaptation.
Yeah, our happiness levels tend to return to a baseline,
Right.
even after major positive events.
Interesting.
Wright uses the example of studies
Okay.
that show declining happiness levels
Yeah.
after 2 years of marriage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we get used to the good stuff,
Right.
and then we need even more.
To get that same initial high.
Exactly, to get that same initial high.
So we're always on this treadmill,
Yeah,
chasing after something that never quite satisfies.
that's the problem, is happiness is this fleeting thing
Yeah.
that's always out of reach.
Yeah.
Then what's the alternative?
Right.
What the book suggests is that true fulfillment
Okay.
comes from understanding
Understand
the
it.
nature of reality
Okay.
and our place in it, which requires us to examine how our minds work.
And that brings us to the whole meditation thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
The book summary mentioned that meditation can help us see through these illusions.
That's right.
But meditation is often misunderstood.
It is, yeah.
People think it's about emptying your mind
Yeah.
or chanting.
Yeah, it's definitely not about that.
So what is it about?
It's more about observing your thoughts and feelings
Okay.
without judgment,
Okay.
becoming aware of how our minds distort reality
Okay.
and, in turn, create our own suffering.
Buddhism argues that a lot of our suffering is self-created.
That's right.
So instead of trying to stop our thoughts,
Yeah.
we're learning to observe them,
Observe them.
to see them as they are without getting caught up in them.
Exactly. It's like creating a space between you, the observer, and the thoughts and feelings themselves.
I can see how that could be helpful.
Yeah.
But how does that tie back to the illusions that we talked about earlier?
Well, the book delves into the mechanics of how our feelings actually influence our perceptions.
Okay.
You've heard of the limbic system, right? It's the emotional part of our brain.
Right.
And it's constantly coloring our interpretations of the world
Before
they even reach the logical part of our brain.
So we might think we're being completely rational.
Yeah.
But our emotions are already, like, skewing our perception.
Often, yes. And we're completely unaware of it.
Wow.
Yeah. So meditation helps us become more aware of this process.
Okay.
And begin to separate our thoughts from our feelings.
Okay.
We can start to see them for what they are.
Which is?
Just thoughts, just feelings passing through.
Fascinating. And I remember the book summary mentioning another key Buddhist concept.
Yeah.
No self.
Right.
Is this where that comes in?
It is. It's the idea that what we perceive as our self, our identity, is actually an ever-changing collection of thoughts, feelings, and sensations.
So it's a pretty radical notion.
It is.
When you think about it.
It is, yeah.
We're so attached to this idea of a solid, independent self.
Right. So if there's no fixed self, who are we?
What's doing the thinking and feeling?
That's the question that Why Buddhism Is True explores.
Okay.
It's not that we don't exist,
right,
but rather that the self is more fluid and interconnected than we realize. Right? Even brings in the work of a microbiologist.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Ed Young,
right,
to kind of illustrate this point,
okay,
Young points out that our bodies are teeming with microbes.
Trillions of them, right?
Trillions of them. They outnumber our own cells.
Wow.
And they play a crucial role in our health and well-being.
It's kind of mind-blowing.
It is.
We're not just individuals.
No.
But entire ecosystems.
We are. It really challenges the idea of a singular, independent self.
Right.
We're more like a collection of processes.
Okay.
Constantly interacting and influencing one another.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together.
Good.
But if we're not really in control of this self,
yeah,
what does that mean for our actions?
That's a great question.
Does that make us like helpless puppets of our biology?
That's a great question, and one we'll delve into further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
But for now, I'll leave you with this.
Okay.
Understanding the illusory nature of the self may not be about giving up control, but rather about discovering a new kind of freedom.
Interesting.
And if you want to explore these ideas in more detail, remember to check out the full book summary on Bookgist.net.
Bookgist.net, great reminder.
There you go. So we've been unpacking this whole idea that the self, the solid identity we feel so attached to might be more fluid,
right,
more impermanent.
And it's a lot to wrap your head around.
Yeah, it is.
If this self isn't really in control, does that mean we're just passengers on this wild ride of biology?
It's not quite that passive.
Okay.
The book suggests that understanding the illusory nature of the self can actually be liberating.
Liberating?
Not limiting.
How so?
Think about it this way.
Okay.
When we cling to a fixed idea of ourselves, we're constantly striving to protect and defend that self-image.
Right.
We worry about what others think. We try to control outcomes.
Yeah.
We get attached to things staying the same.
I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
Letting go of that need for control sounds scary.
It is a shift in perspective.
But also kind of appealing.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah, the book argues that this fixed self is actually the source of a lot of our suffering. We get attached to our desires, our possessions, our identities. Right. And when those things inevitably change, as they always do, we experience pain, disappointment.
It reminds me of that famous quote.
Oh, yeah.
No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man.
I love that quote.
Change is constant whether we like it or not.
Exactly. And resisting that change is what creates suffering.
Okay.
Buddhism encourages us to kind of embrace the impermanence of all things.
To see change as a natural part of life.
So instead of clinging to like a rigid self-identity, we're learning to flow with the changes like that river.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
And when we let go of this need to control, we can actually experience more joy, more freedom in the present moment.
It still feels a bit paradoxical, though.
Yeah.
How can letting go of control lead to a sense of freedom?
Well, When we're constantly trying to control our experiences, our thoughts, our emotions, we create a lot of internal tension. Anxiety.
We're fighting against the natural flow of life.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's exhausting, trying to keep everything just so...
It is exhausting, but when we surrender to the present moment, to what is, without judgment, without resistance, we can experience this deep sense of peace and ease.
It's not about becoming passive or indifferent.
It's not about that.
Right.
It's about responding to life's challenges.
With more wisdom, compassion.
And that brings us back to the whole idea of meditation. Right?
It does.
Learning to observe our thoughts and emotions without getting swept away by them.
Exactly. Meditation is a practice that helps us cultivate this awareness, this ability to observe without judgment. And as we develop this skill, it starts to permeate our everyday lives.
How so?
We become less reactive, more present, more able to choose how we respond to the world around us.
It's almost like creating space between the thinker and the thought.
Yes.
The feeler and the feeling.
Yeah.
We're not our thoughts. We're not our emotions.
Right.
We're the awareness that experiences them.
That's a beautiful way to describe it. In this space, this awareness, this is where our true freedom lies.
I love that.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, I'm still grappling with this whole concept of no self. Like if there's no fixed self, who's doing the meditating? Who's making the choices?
That's a question that has been pondered by philosophers, spiritual seekers.
For centuries.
And there's no easy answer. But remember, the concept of no self doesn't mean that we don't exist. Or that we have no agency.
So it's not about denying our individuality.
No, not at all. It's more about recognizing
what?
That what we perceive as our individual self is constantly evolving, interconnected with everything else.
So we're like individual waves in a vast ocean, distinct yet inseparable from the water itself.
That's a beautiful analogy. And it's this understanding of interconnectedness that leads to one of the most powerful aspects of Buddhist philosophy.
Is compassion.
The book summary on Bookgist.net highlighted compassion as a central theme.
Yeah, it is.
But how does understanding no self lead to greater compassion? Well, when we recognize that our own sense of self is fluid and interconnected with everything else, it becomes harder to draw rigid boundaries between ourselves and others. We begin to see the shared humanity in everyone,
regardless of
their background, their beliefs, or their circumstances.
It's like we're breaking down the barriers of us versus them.
Exactly.
Recognizing that we're all part of this larger web of life.
Precisely. And when we see ourselves in others, when we recognize our shared humanity, compassion arises naturally.
So it's not about forcing ourselves to be compassionate.
No, it's not about forcing.
But rather about cultivating understanding.
Yes.
Empathy.
Exactly. And that shift in perspective can have profound implications, not just for our personal relationships, but for society as a whole.
Okay, so how does this like individual practice of cultivating compassion, of understanding no self, translate to creating a better world? That's a big leap, isn't it?
It is. But the book makes a compelling argument for the potential of these practices to create real social change. Remember, in the beginning, we talked about how our minds are wired for survival.
Like our tendency to crave sugar, even when it's no longer beneficial.
Exactly. Well, that same survival instinct can manifest as self-centeredness, as a focus on protecting our own interests. Even at the expense of others.
At the expense of others, yeah.
And while that might have been necessary for our ancestors in a world of scarcity, it's creating a lot of problems in the modern world.
It's like we're stuck in this, like, outdated operating system, still running on fear and scarcity, when in reality, we live in a world of abundance. Interconnectedness.
That's a great way to put it. And this is where the practice of meditation, of cultivating compassion, and understanding the illusory nature of the self can be so transformative.
So it's not just about individual enlightenment, but about shifting our, like, collective consciousness.
Precisely. The book argues that as more individuals cultivate these qualities, it creates a ripple effect throughout society.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all connects.
Good.
But is there any evidence that this kind of individual transformation can actually lead to widespread social change?
That's a great question.
It seems like a pretty idealistic notion.
It does sound idealistic.
Right.
But Wright presents some compelling evidence.
Oh, okay.
To support this idea.
Like what?
He cites studies showing the remarkable benefits of mindfulness and compassion training programs.
Okay.
Not just for individuals, but for entire communities.
Can you give us an example?
One of the most striking examples is a study on the impact of meditation programs in schools.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. The results were pretty remarkable.
What were they?
Showing a 65% reduction in violent incidents.
65%.
Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah. Just by teaching kids how to meditate.
Yes. It's a powerful testament to the potential of these practices.
Right.
To shift our behavior.
Right.
To make us less reactive.
Right.
More compassionate.
Wow.
And if we can achieve these kinds of results in schools,
right.
Imagine the possibilities if we could scale up these programs.
Right.
Make them accessible to everyone.
That's a really inspiring thought.
It is.
So by cultivating these qualities within ourselves, we're not just improving our own lives.
Right.
We're actually contributing to a more peaceful and compassionate world.
That's the key takeaway here. We're not isolated individuals striving for personal happiness. Yeah. We're interconnected beings.
Right.
And our actions, our thoughts, our very way of being in the world have a ripple effect.
That extends.
That extends far beyond ourselves.
I'm starting to see why Buddhism is true is resonating with so many people.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's not just about ancient philosophy.
Right.
It's a roadmap for creating a better future.
It is.
Both for ourselves and for humanity as a whole.
Yeah, exactly.
And if this deep dive has piqued your interest, remember, you can find a full summary of the book along with many others at bookgist.net.
Bookgist.net. Great reminder.
So we've covered some pretty profound ground in our deep dive into why Buddhism is true.
Yeah, we have.
We talked about the illusory nature of reality.
Right.
That fleeting pursuit of happiness. The potential of meditation to help us see through those illusions.
Absolutely.
And we've explored how the concept of no self, while initially challenging, can actually lead to a greater sense of freedom, interconnectedness, and compassion.
Absolutely. It's a lot to absorb, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think our listeners are ready for the big question.
Which is it?
How do we actually put all this into practice?
Yeah.
How do we take these profound Buddhist concepts, apply them to our everyday lives?
So let's get down to brass tacks.
Okay, let's do it.
What are some of those tools?
Well, as we've already discussed, meditation is a central practice in Buddhism.
Right.
And Wright emphasizes that even short periods of daily meditation can have a profound impact on our well-being.
I think a lot of people get intimidated.
I can see that.
By the idea of meditation.
Yeah.
They picture monks, sitting in silent contemplation.
For hours.
For hours on end, yeah.
It's not about that at all.
So what is it about?
It's about finding these small pockets of stillness in your day, even just a few minutes, to simply observe your breath, your thoughts, your feelings, without judgment.
And you could be like sitting, walking, even lying down, right?
You can be doing any of those.
The key is to just cultivate that awareness.
The space between you and your experience.
And remember, if you're looking for guidance on how to start a meditation practice, you can always check out bookgist.net.
Yes, bookgist.net.
For a comprehensive summary of why Buddhism is true.
Absolutely.
Along with summaries of many other books.
Right.
On meditation and mindfulness.
A great resource.
But even beyond formal meditation,
the
book encourages us to cultivate mindfulness
Rest.
Throughout our day.
Throughout the day.
So this means bringing that same quality of awareness to everything we do.
That's right.
Whether it's eating a meal, having a conversation, simply walking down the street.
Just bringing awareness to those simple things.
So it's about being present in each moment.
Being present.
Rather than letting our minds race off into the past or the future.
Exactly.
It's about savoring the simple things,
Yeah.
Noticing the details we might normally overlook.
Right. The feeling of the sun on your skin.
Yeah.
The sound of birds singing. The taste of your morning coffee.
It sounds so simple.
It does. It does.
Yet I know how easy it is to get caught up in the whirlwind of daily life.
Yeah.
Forget to appreciate those little things.
It takes practice.
Yeah.
Our minds are wired to wander. To jump from one thought to the next.
Sure.
But the more we practice bringing our attention back to the present moment, the easier it becomes.
So what's a good way to start cultivating this mindfulness? Do you have any tips?
Start small.
Okay.
Choose one activity each day to do with full attention.
Okay.
Maybe it's brushing your teeth, washing the dishes, eating your lunch.
Okay.
Just slow down, notice the sensations, engage all your senses.
Right.
It's not about adding anything extra to your day, but about bringing a different quality of attention.
To what you're already doing. I like that.
Yeah.
It's about transforming the mundane into something more mindful.
Precisely. And as you become more comfortable with this practice,
Right.
you can start to expand it to other areas of your life.
Okay.
You might notice yourself becoming more present in conversations, more aware of your emotions, more patient in challenging situations.
That's what I found so fascinating about the book.
Yeah.
It's not just about like abstract philosophy.
Yeah.
It's about real tangible shifts in how we experience the world.
It is. And another key practice the book emphasizes is cultivating compassion.
Okay.
Both for ourselves and for others.
This involves recognizing that everyone is struggling.
Yes.
In their own way.
Absolutely.
And offering kindness and understanding instead of judgment.
Right. And that can be challenging.
It can be really challenging.
Especially when we're faced with people who act in ways that we don't agree with. Right. Or who have hurt us in the past.
How do we cultivate compassion for those who seem to deserve it the least?
It's a difficult practice.
It is.
But remember, everyone is a product of their conditioning, their experiences, their genetics, their actions, even the harmful ones, often stem from fear, pain, or ignorance.
So it's about trying to see the humanity in everyone, even those who make mistakes or cause harm.
Exactly. It doesn't mean condoning their actions,
right?
But it does mean trying to see the bigger picture, recognizing that everyone is on their own journey and that we all have the capacity for both darkness and light.
Reminds me of that quote.
What's that?
Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle.
Oh, I love that one.
We never know what others are going through.
Absolutely. And offering compassion, even when it's difficult, can be incredibly healing, both for ourselves and for the other person.
So it's about recognizing our shared humanity, our interconnectedness, and extending that understanding.
To everyone.
To everyone, even those who challenge us.
That's the essence of compassion, and the book suggests that this practice, along with mindfulness and meditation, can not only transform our individual lives, create a ripple effect that extends outward,
contributing
to more compassionate
and peaceful
world.
It's a powerful message, and I think it's resonating with so many people.
Yeah.
Because we're all longing for a better way to be in the world.
We are.
We're tired of the division, the anger, the fear.
Absolutely. And Why Buddhism Is True offers a path forward.
It does.
It shows us that change is possible.
Not just on a personal level, but on a collective level.
That's right.
Well, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive.
It has.
I feel like we've only scratched the surface of what Why Buddhism Is True has to offer.
Yeah, me too.
But I hope it sparked our listeners' curiosity to explore these ideas further.
I hope so too.
And for those who are interested in delving deeper, remember to check out.
You can check out
Bookgist.net.
Bookgist.net.
For a comprehensive summary of the book, along with summaries of many other insightful books across all genres.
A great resource.
Yes. Bookgist.net is a fantastic resource for anyone who wants to expand their knowledge.
Absolutely.
Explore new perspectives.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure diving into these ideas with you.
Likewise. And to our listener, thank you for joining us on this exploration of why Buddhism is true.
Yes. Thank you.
May this deep dive inspire you to cultivate greater mindfulness.
Absolutely.
Compassion.
Yes.
And understanding in your own life.
That's right.
And in the world around you.
It's been a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Me too. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.